wave this year. I'm glad there hasn't been like loads. It was really bad last year. Chances are there will be next year. Yeah, I haven't been out on this for a little over a week, I think. Might have been Thursday or Friday. It's now Sunday. It was like last Thursday or Friday, so it's been like, I don't know, 9 or 10 days. Oh wow, they've dug up the whole skate park. What's going on there? I wonder if they're going to build houses or something. Ridiculous. I don't know. Build a shop or house. Or maybe they'll build a new entertainment something. I guess not, like there was a big skateboarding trend around sort of early early to mid noughts. Me and my friends used to skateboard as well, you know. I wasn't that good at it, and I sprained my ankle and fell off, you know, a good few times. My friend who's Asian was like pretty good at it. There used to be an open air swimming pool there actually. It used to be an open air swimming pool before it got turned into a skate park. Unusual sounding birds, aren't they? I'm not sure what type of bird they are. But yeah, I used to come fishing down there a lot around 2017. From 2017 through to 2019, I went fishing a lot here. I drive down on my mobility scooter. I had a few different ones. I had like 2 or 3. One was my mum's one. Down here I used to catch big brown trout, like they're about 3 to 5 pounds. Big, nice big brown trout, and people would watch and they'd be really impressed. They'd be really interested in the fish because they're really nice fish, and you don't really see them often around here. Like this is the only place, you know, around the rivers around here that I know of where you can find brown trout. I think even in like late 2020, I went fishing again in like late 2020, and I somehow caught another big one. It was like 5 or 6 pounds. But it's strange because that was after the fire. There was a big fire in like late 2018, or might have been late 2019. Probably was 2019. And there was a fire at a chemical factory in Brackley, and it polluted the river all the way down to here. So Brackley's like 8 miles upstream or something, and this sort of horrible smelling like foam, kind of smelled like soap or something, just filled the whole river, and it killed like every single fish. There wasn't even before that happened, there wasn't as many fish like as there used to be. like especially like big chub. There used to be a good amount of big chub, like not loads, but enough that you could catch them if you good enough. But used to have big pike as well, like 10 pounds or more. When I was younger, I remember like really big pike on motorbike. There was big perch, but I usually fish for bread, so I didn't tend to catch perch. But when I was younger, we did catch perch. They're an interesting fish. They're quite rough. I used to be really into fish when I was younger. I really liked them. I was obsessed with them. I would make like models of fish or whatever out of like I remember one out of like a bottle. Like I'd copy what they did on the TV and stuff. They made this fish and I would copy it. And I had like things on the wall that were like fish or fishing rods or something, like a kind of like a decoration. It was good because some of my uncles were into fishing as well. Uncle Eric, I think Uncle Eric lives down in southwest now near Cornwall, or like Plymouth or something near there. Uncle Eric, he was, well, I remember him being like in his 40s or 50s when I used to go fishing with him. And then I used to go with my Uncle Mark as well. My Uncle Mark works as like a drilling person. Like he would drill like big boreholes in the ground with this massive machine. And he likes shooting. Look at that guy. Got like a bright light on in the middle of the day for some reason. Yeah, he likes shooting with a shotgun and goes to the pub a lot. He's kind of a typical countryside person. He's similar to my granddad in that way. But he's been really ill in the past few years. That's cool. Very cool. It's got a kickstand. Hydraulic brakes. But yeah, he's been really ill, but I don't really know what's wrong with him. And first thing that happened was he got like an infection in his leg, and it was like flesh-eating bacteria, and it like took a chunk out of his leg. And then he got better from that. He went to hospital, got better from that, but because of that, it seemed like he broke up with his wife. And because he used to live in Twyford, which is like a village. He broke up with his wife and moved in with my nan. After that. But then he became ill again, and he became really ill. Had to have heart surgery. So he's not been well. My nan's very old, she's not well. Granddad died like nearly 10 years ago. Both my other grandparents down in Essex are still alive, but my granddad's been very ill as well, whereas usually he's fine. It's usually my nan that's a bit ill. But yeah, I used to really like fishing. I did try a few years ago to fish at the lake, about 5 miles from here. but I didn't catch anything. It's a hard lake to catch anything at. I'm just not really a lake fishing person. It must be fun for the kids to ride in that thing. I bet it's got swell bay tyres on. It's like a very small tyre on the, very small wheel on the front. These ducks, they know they're going to get fed with bread. People always feed them their bread, that's why they hang around here. What kind of motor he's got in that thing? I reckon the motor was that tiny thing at the back. Maybe it was like a tiny geared hub. Because yeah, it did have some, looked like it had some kind of motor on the back of it, unless it was like what they call an internally geared hub. I think it was a motor. It probably is just a 250 watt, like maybe a geared, maybe direct, but yeah, it looked like he was having to pedal quite hard to. I think what I'll do is I'll just go into the middle of town. I think I'll just go over there to show you like what it looks like in the shopping bit, and then I'll go back through the park, through Shandos Park, and then back down the railway. I was going to go back through Vorton, but I feel like going through Shandos. That almost looks like an American car. Yeah, that's one of those electric ones. I used to see those like driving around in like convoys around my estate, and I just wondered, are they like self-driving or something? Because they were in like a convoy. It was weird. It was like they were testing them. That's the old village hall we used to go to, is it pantomime? Like kind of like seasonal plays, kind of like Giant and the Beanstalk and like Punch and Judy and that sort of thing in there. And also they used to have like dancing in there. And also I remember going to like a vegetable show in here with my nan and granddad. So my nan and granddad had an allotment where they grow. They had quite a big allotment, and I used to like go in there and dig big holes in the ground and whatever, have like bonfires. Up there my granddad kept like weasels, these little animals that like go into holes and things and they catch like rabbits. They're like got like long claws and they're very skittery, like they kind of like look like a bit like a squirrel, but they smell quite strong as well. They're like a bit like an otter or a squirrel or a stoat, aren't they? But I think he used to keep them up the allotment, so he must have gone there quite often to feed them and stuff. I don't know what he feed. I think he used to feed them like milk, I'm not sure. This swan looks weird. The black and gold. That flag, it's like South Africa or something. I think this is some sort of diversity exhibit, to be honest. I'll just show you Cornwall's place. This used to be quite nice along here. I reckon it's been sort of gentrified and sort of hipsterised a bit. That's Waitrose there, where you shop if you're middle class, and my dad sometimes goes in there. This dry cleaning thing here, it's looking like it's kind of like hipster hairdressing shop now with that branding, but my girlfriend's mother used to work in there. I don't know if she still does. That's a wine shop. See, these shops all change every few years. That used to be an old like stationery and cards and stuff. Oh yeah, they've got quite a few restaurants along here. So that's like, there's a sort of exotic restaurants here. There used to be like a shop that sold like pots and pans and things. It all changes so fast that you can't keep up with it. Zen relish, Chinese and Japanese cuisine. This used to be the email, all you can eat Chinese buffet. For a long time it was the email, and basically you'd go upstairs and they had like a big room up there, and you could sort of so all you can eat buffet. It was quite good. Sweet autumn. A lot of these shops, you just kind of wonder, like, what do they actually sell that you'd want to buy, you know? What is the point of these shops? Kind of for women, I guess. Something for women. See, the online things have really, as Waitrose, the online things have really destroyed the local shopping. Like Amazon and eBay and stuff. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad in a way. That's the Lloyd's Pharmacy, or it used to be. Jardine's Pharmacy, that's the one, yeah. I've been in there quite a lot. But even this is at risk of closing, apparently. Look, it's crazy. That's not like, you know, that's not an independent local thing, that's Jardine's. That's one of the biggest pharmacy brands in the UK. Ice cream shop. They used to sell paintings here. They used to sell paintings. I don't think it's here anymore. Yeah, this has changed. This is all changed. They used to sell paintings in here. Some of the paintings are quite interesting. This Chen, Greetings Plus. Yeah, this is the sort of shop that used to be here. Kind of these local independent businesses like selling gift cards and things. Is that? Oh yeah, that's one of the old hardware shops. There was another one on the other side, on the high street as well. This Chengdu has always been here, but I've never been in here. Chengdu. I've never been in here. Let's see what they sell. I think it's Chinese. Szechuan beef, roast duck, so it's kind of Chinese stuff. Tiramisu, chocolate marshmallow cake. I don't know if this is like a really good restaurant or not, or if it's just kind of an average. Kung Po vegetable, so it's all like Chinese stuff, and they sell like quite a few things. I don't know much about Chinese food, so I can't really like chop suey. Let's have a look at the prices. About £7-8 per thing. Spring rolls is £5.70. Rice dishes, £21 per person. £21 per person. When is it? Opens at 4:30 PM. Okay, so it's not open this Sunday. This used to be a shoe shop there, I think it still is. Yeah, this is an old like hardware shop. Sunday. Yeah. There used to be another one basically behind where this is, on the other side. There's two dentists here, and one of them's the one I go to, which is on the other side of this. This tea room's always been here. This tea room's really nice. This has always been here, but I don't, if I've been in there, I don't really remember it. I know where I have been is like this really nice Indian restaurant that's sort of near the church on Castle Street, I think it's called. Here we've got the flags. Yeah, I really like the old European look of this building here. Just this whole street looks very touristy, doesn't it? Usually there's like a flower shop here. It's probably still there. There's another shoe shop. This used to be an old, when we were doing our A-levels, this used to be a chocolate shop, like a really, imagine like a really like good, like a tourist, like in a tourist place where you'd find like a chocolate shop that had like loads of stuff. Kind of like in Harry Potter, you know, like honey jukes. Where's the flower shop? The flower shop's there, but I remember it being like there. So maybe, I remember it being there, I think. So I think it's moved. But yeah, this has always been a nice little lane, you know. Nice decoration, isn't it? I don't remember ever going in there either. I think that's come I think that's come later, that ice cream shop. These beautiful grasses. That girl is, because like her face looks older than her body. She could be like in her 20s, but she's just like small. Her face looks really mature compared to her size, you know. She didn't look like a teenager, which is, you know, it's weird. Maybe that's how people are nowadays in this sort of modern society. They sort of have to grow up much faster. All the stress is affecting them, and the chemicals and the 5G and the traffic pollution. It's like aging them faster, I don't know. Oh, bumpy here. Let's just go down Chandos. I'll talk about my health situation in a bit. I'm just enjoying the journey, what I could do to disable it, but I never did. Another Tesla. Yeah, this is that house that used to be sort of nice, and now it's just turned into a complete construction site. Since the owners sold out and people from out of town have moved in. I lost my chance to go there because it had turned off. That's the pub that's always been there. That Sainsbury's used to be an old abandoned cinema, and it was in the 10 years ago it was still an abandoned building, and I remember like sitting out there on the bench on a hot day in May. I think it was May, and yeah, it was quiet, much quieter than it is now. I used to actually walk down, you'd be surprised, but I used to walk down the right hand side of that where all those trees are. I would walk all the way along from one bridge to the other. I don't know if I ever caught any fish there, but at one point there were a lot of fish down there, obviously where people can't easily get to. That's where the fish like to be, but this was, I was probably like 8 or something at the time. I don't know, 6 to 10 years old, 6 to 11 years old, I'm not sure. So if I'm 35 now, that was 25 to 30 years ago. And here's this dickhead who's put all these things on here. I haven't seen any new ones recently, so maybe they've left town, or maybe they've gone to prison, or got a job and stopped doing that. I don't know. But it's the same person, just suddenly started graffitiing lots of different places. Not even just in town, but also I saw them like going out towards like Tinjerick, where the road bridge is, the big Tinjerick bypass. And this sort of graffiti didn't used to happen around here. You'd get a few little bits, but they weren't like it didn't really bother you. But this was like loads and loads all appearing at once, and the style was different as well. I saw that person earlier with the 2 girls. Got quieter today. Let's have a sit down on this bench. And Dad wants me to write a shopping list because so he can go shop, so he knows what to get. But he's gone to football, so hopefully I'll be back by the time he gets back from football. And Dad's like nearly 70 and he's quite active still. I used to really like them. There's these fish called tench I used to like, and they're not very common, but there's a lake near Preston Visit called Copper Horse Farm, or Copper Bottom Farm, Copper Horse I think it is, and somewhere on that property is a big lake with like a lot of trees around it. It's sort of at the bottom of a hill or something, and they had a lot of water, it's kind of a medium-sized lake. It's not huge, but got a lot of water lilies like this, and it's quite a quiet, shaded lake, and they've got a lot of tench in there. I went there once with this man from Newcastle that he was like a fireman. We met him on holiday in Cyprus or something, and we actually went up to visit them in Newcastle as well, but he came to stay with us. So some of my parents were friends with, and he was into fishing, and he offered to show me like fly fishing, which I've never done, but I had they cooked Mexican food and it made me ill, so I never went fly fishing. But took him to, I think might have gone with my uncle, but I also went with him to this lake where these fish were. So with my health problems, first thing I did was like change my diet, and I wondered if I had something called mast cell activation syndrome, where your immune system starts becoming like hyper reactive to everything. Like they can react to like sunlight, heat, cold, physical sensations, exercise, all sorts of things. Triggers like the release of histamine and other things into their body that makes them feel really ill. And I wondered, had I developed that disease? So I started taking antihistamines, I changed my diet, I tried to just pay attention to what I was feeling like, and started taking something called quercetin, which is like a herb, and my conclusion was that I probably didn't have mast cell activation syndrome or histamine intolerance, because there's a wasp there. Because I could eat certain foods that were high in histamine and it didn't seem to cause a problem. And I started thinking again, the problem could be mold, because last year when I started having weird issues like dehydration, weird sensations in my nerves and my brain, when I searched on the internet, the thing that came up was mold illness. So that's why I initially started thinking it could be mold. I think there's apples on that tree up there. Lovely red colour. I started thinking, yeah, it could be mold. So I didn't have the money to test anything though, and it's not easy to. But this spring, when I became really ill, that's the thing I went back to, because that's what I was thinking about last year. So I tested my urine metabolites for mold toxins, and then I did like an ERMI DNA test. It's like tests the dust in your house for the DNA of different molds, and it tries to quantify them by species. And so those two tests cost a lot of money, and I had to wait for a long time. It took a long time to do that. Had to send one of the samples to America, and yeah, it probably took more than a month to get the results back. The ERMI one, I think, probably took a couple of weeks, but both of these tests cost about £300 each, I think. I think I got the results by like May or something, May or June. It said that, yeah, the mold level in my house was high, and I had 3 different mold toxins in my urine that were above the level that they should, what they said was the normal range. But some people disputed the scientific value of that test. And then around that time I started living in the tent, so I thought, well, I'll see if the mold is the problem, because if I get outside then it should solve the problem. But I did get some improvement, but it didn't solve the problem, so I started trying to look for after a month or 2, I started trying to look for other explanations. And then I started looking more at my stomach, and the first thing I looked at was Candida, which is like a type of mold that can grow in your body, especially in the stomach but on your skin as well and stuff. And the candida can cause like problems with chemical sensitivities, and it can cause like food problems and all this sort of thing. So I did a protocol that's supposed to kill that candida, and that's what I was doing in like June. From doing the candida, and also when I first did the candida herbs, I was pretty sensitive to some of them. Like one of them, I think it was the caprylic acid, but I'm not sure. There's a pill called Candida Away, which is a mixture of things, and I seem to be really sensitive to that to start with. But now I can take like a whole one. After a week or so, I could take like a whole one, and I was okay. But I did notice some difference, like when I first started doing these herbs, and I was having since like March or April, I was only able to go to the toilet like once per week, and I had to take like 2 different laxatives to make it happen. So I was in a really bad situation. But when I went into the tent, that improved after about a month. But it didn't actually go back to normal until I did this like herb protocol for this candida. So it did have some benefit. But overall, like, my energy levels weren't much better, and my muscles were still hurting. I was still feeling rough. Beautiful dragonfly there, blue one. Yeah, so it didn't solve the problem. It may have like improved some things, but it didn't solve the problem. So then I started thinking like, well, what else could it be? And I decided I would do tests on my stomach for leaky gut or bacteria, just general things to do with leaky gut, which is when your stomach, the cells of your stomach don't perfectly stop the wrong things going through into your bloodstream. And the first test I wanted to do for that, it turned out that it was going to be very difficult to do it because it needed to be taken to Milton Keynes on a certain day. It couldn't just be taken to town on a certain day. So it was a test that was a lot like the urine test that I had to do. It had to be shipped in a certain way. And with the urine test, I was able to take it to the place in town near where I've just been. And that was back in March, I think. But this one after I bought it, they told me like, we don't use UPS anymore, we're using FedEx now. So, I mean, this was like over a month ago. And this was like maybe 2 months ago. And so a couple of weeks later, I decided to buy a different test instead that I was going to be able to do easier. So I bought this test called Biome Site on Amazon, which is half the price. It doesn't measure everything, it doesn't measure as many things, but it's probably actually better, it's more accurate for the bacteria levels. It measures a huge amount of different bacteria, supposedly with like good accuracy, and it uses like AI to analyze the patterns and stuff. So that cost me 150, and I did that 3 or 4 weeks ago, and got the results back like about 10 days to 2 weeks ago. And yeah, very interesting. The results were very interesting. And following on from that, I've changed the herbs and stuff that I've been taking. try and fix a certain problem that I suspect I have. One of these types of bacteria is very high. It's like off the scale. And this type of bacteria produces a toxic gas called hydrogen sulfide. And this hydrogen sulfide could cause some of the problems I've been having with this leaky gut permeability, which is what causes you to develop food allergies. So like I can't eat chicken anymore. Since March I can't eat chicken anymore. I'm intolerant to dairy now, whereas I wasn't last year. But I don't know if it's a food allergy or if it's just an intolerance. A lot of people have issues with dairy and can't eat it. So this test told me that a lot of the bacteria in my stomach, the percentage of them as compared to the total percentage, the percentage of bacteria is way off of what it should be, of what the average sample is. And some of these are like pathogenic bacteria that can cause problems. The ones I'm mostly concerned about are called sulfate reducing bacteria, and one of them is called like desulfovibrio, and that's the one that was completely off the scale. And another one is called like Bielophilia Wandsworthia, and that one was high, but it wasn't off the scale. And both of those can cause a problem called hydrogen sulfide SIBO, which is what I was suspecting I had. Because I also bought a device called an Air 2, which measures the stomach gases. And I tried to see if I had hydrogen SIBO or methane SIBO, and I couldn't see a pattern that clearly showed that I had it. But I did see like sometimes my hydrogen levels were very high all day, whereas other days they were low all day, and it didn't matter what food I ate. It wasn't like a result of the food. So something was going on that was unusual, and you could see it on this machine that you blow into, and it connects to your phone. It's more of this graffiti. It's the same person. So that machine, yeah, that was another thing I forgot about that I did. But that machine told me a lot as well. But this machine can't measure hydrogen sulfide, which is the one. There's 3 gases that are relevant. It can measure 2 of them, but not 3. The only test that can measure hydrogen sulfide is in America. It's called a Trio Smart breath test. It's a lab test, and you can't get it in Europe. So the only way for me to know if I have this problem is the symptoms, and also these bacteria tests that measure the level of bacteria. But the thing is, they measure the bacteria more so in the large intestine, not the small intestine. People say that it's not really reflective the levels in the small intestine. So even doing this bacteria test doesn't necessarily tell you that you have this problem. It's kind of like guesswork, but that's where I'm at the moment. So this test told me that about a third of my bacteria levels were significantly raised above what's called the 90 percentile mark. So only one in 10 people had levels this high as mine, and that was the case for 30% of the bacteria by genus, I think, or by species. So that told me that the bacteria levels in my stomach are completely abnormal, and this isn't something that's found in other people who have chronic fatigue syndrome. If it was a chronic fatigue syndrome thing that was common, I would know about it, because other people would have done the same tests and they would have found the same thing. What they usually find in the studies is that the diversity is reduced of the stomach bacteria in chronic fatigue syndrome, whereas this test told me the diversity was good, or very good. So, unusual. But I still believe I have chronic fatigue syndrome. That's never changed. I've never doubted that. This is a nice little spot as well. I like it here. A bit wet down there. Used to be a waterfall there, but they took it out. The river's looking a bit low actually, despite all the rain we've had. So there was more bacteria that were like above 90% compared to average, 90 percentile, than there were ones that were below 10%. So there was more bacteria that were raised, very highly raised, than there were that were very low. So you could call that an overgrowth, I suppose. There were also some bacteria that were good bacteria, considered good bacteria, that were very low. But I can't remember exactly which ones or what their purpose was. Because a lot of these bacteria, the scientists don't really understand like what their function is. They just know that they have some significance for being healthy, some of these bacteria. And other bacteria have some significance for being ill. Yeah, I started taking, I had already had some of the things I needed to target these hydrogen sulfide producing bacteria. I already had oregano oil, that's the main one. Quercetin, resveratrol. The ones I had to get was this supplement called galacto-oligosaccharides or something, GOS, and looks like it's manufactured in the UK, like the one they recommend, which is called Bimuno, and it's like a powder. And another thing I needed to get was bismuth subsalicate. Bismuth is a metal, so this is and this one is actually in a product called Pepto-Bismol, which is a common, I've heard of it before, it's like a common thing you take for stomach problems. So I got those tablets, pink tablets, and taking about 2 of those a day. And that bismuth subsalicate is supposed to like neutralise, I think, hydrogen sulfide on a chemical level. So it doesn't. I don't think it affects the bacteria necessarily, but it affects the gas, the toxic gas itself. But yeah, I haven't. It's been about 10 days since I went on my bike, and because a couple of days after that last one, I stomach gas stuff seemed to get worse, and then my muscles became sore, and I noticed I was going to the toilet more often after the gas started to appear. So they say that hydrogen sulfide can cause diarrhea. I don't really have diarrhea, like not this year. Maybe I did last year sometimes. But I also had constipation last year because I had severe dehydration, so it's kind of like one thing to the next. There's no clear pattern. It's not like these symptoms that you can easily identify. The only thing that I can tell is like sometimes when I blow off, it happens a lot. It happens very often compared to normal, and sometimes like it's very abrasive, corrosive. I don't know. Like it's like you have to leave the room. You know, you're basically like gassing yourself, and I didn't realise that was like necessarily a problem. You know, but I guess that could be this hydrogen sulfide gas. The other thing they say is you could have like burping, whereas I don't have this burping, you know. I don't have like burping problem that smells like toxic. It's more like bloating and tiredness and these episodes of this gas. I know if I eat this like vegan chocolate, that seems to give me like bloating and gas. Certain foods, the vegan chocolate particularly. Just carbohydrates in general can be a problem, but my sensitivity to carbohydrates has actually improved like a lot since like 3 months ago, and I don't know why. It has actually improved a lot. Like sometimes I could eat like cereal bars, and sometimes I couldn't. Yesterday I had Jordan's Country Crisp. I like this cereal called Jordan's Country Crisp. It's got like oats and strawberry and coconuts and things. It's really nice, and I used to be quite sensitive to that. It would like seem like it would make me feel ill, like tired and stuff after I had that, or if I had too much Cocoa Pops. I had to be really careful what I ate, but doesn't seem to be such a problem now. And I've been eating, like in the past month or two, I've been eating so much carbs and sugar than what I was before. Like in the early summer, I was mostly eating like meat and eggs and potato, carrots and parsnips. Very few like grains and sugar. Now the problem I have is when it comes to winter, I've got to come back inside, and that's the problem. You know, I've got to sort out a situation where the air's good enough for me to be indoors. So my plan is like air filters, powerful air filters. I'm trying to make my own like DIY machine, which has like a large quantity of activated carbon to filter the chemicals out of there. but one of the pieces that, like the actual fan part of it, that I ordered like 6 weeks ago or something, hasn't turned up. It's got to come from America, and it's just disappeared. I got the carbon canister that weighs like 20 pounds or something, but and I got the HEPA filter, but the actual fan part, which is obviously really important, has not turned up with online ordering. It tends to always, the things tend to always turn up, you know. So, but thankfully there hasn't been any heat waves, so I haven't had to stay inside. I haven't had to come inside because of the heat, so that's been good. So good luck and bad luck, you know. But I don't need that machine yet, so I can get another fan from like the UK, but it'll be cheap and it'll probably be really loud because we're talking about like a huge industrial fan. This is called a duct fan. It's like a 6-inch duct fan. It could be really loud. Yeah, this is where the water. That's where the waterfall used to be. That's the university building there in the old mill. Back in 2019, no, or 2018, 2019 sometime, but just before that fire happened, I was like sat there near that blue railing, sort of there where there's trees up to the right of the bridge. I was sort of fishing off that bank bit into that pool there, and there was these chub there, and I could see them, but it was so hard to actually catch them. But that was nice. I would bring my portable speaker, and I could listen to music while fishing. Nice stuff. Been watching these guys called, just started watching their stuff called 14 Words. Basically, there's this guy called Charles Fort. A guy called Charles Fort from like 100 years ago. He used to research like paranormal stuff. And I think the 14 Words is like, they've named it after him. Let's just put it that way. And these guys actually know someone I was these are like a group of British guys, and they're doing this like paranormal podcast, you know, they're talking about like ghosts and stuff, like the Enfield poltergeist, and these guys actually know someone, my friend from prison, which is really surprising. But like, I found these guys back in like 2020. After I come out of prison, I just randomly found these guys on the internet. Because I searched for this guy called Godwin. There's this guy called Godwinson, and he talks about like politics, but he's kind of like a comedian. Like, he'll talk about like Sargon of Akkad, like when he got like fish thrown at him in Cornwall. Look at all these like shiny, expensive. Ugh, I don't like this. There's cars everywhere, and they're all like. Ugh, I don't like these cars, and I don't like the type of cars, and I don't like how many there are. It's like our town's being like taken over by like super rich, like bad people. I don't know. Weird. But yeah, I was searching for this guy called Godwinson because I used to watch him a little bit. He's like not very well known. He's very low key, but he does some very insightful kind of like comedy sort of videos and political commentaries. And I also happen to know that my friend Luke told me that when we were in prison, he told me that he knows Godwinson. So like, that was kind of like someone who we both knew of. And I think like maybe they hang out together, or they might have met each other, but it sounded like they'd kind of like worked together in some context. Something to do with like the High Tory gang or something, like some meme fucking thing, I don't know. But they were kind of on the same page, I guess. So I was searching for Godwinson, and I found these other guys who were like doing some live streams, and they had Godwinson on there, and they'd sort of named their podcast after some kind of like, after this meme. They'd named their podcast after this meme. That guy looked interesting, to be honest. He seemed like I'd be interested in him. Not in that way, but I mean like to talk to. Yeah, they'd named their podcast, their live stream thing after this like meme that was going around at the time, kind of bit spicy meme, and they were just kind of like doing all the British memes, and yeah, then I realised like they know my friend from prison, and I was like surprised. I was really surprised, but I thought they were just kind of taking the piss out of him, like they didn't know him very well. They just like they'd like known him slightly, and they just kind of didn't. I don't know, they didn't want to be associated with him because he was like a spurg. But they were saying like, yeah, he was like ordering Dominoes on his like political extremists named email account, which is funny. So he was kind of doing like silly things even back when they knew him, I guess. But I didn't think they respected him very much. I don't know, I couldn't tell. I didn't know how well they knew him, and I didn't think they were being very respectful. So I saw they had a paranormal podcast thing, but I thought they were just going to be like taking the piss, you know, they weren't going to be serious about it. So I didn't really watch it. I thought it was just gonna be, you know, when you see like something in like the Sun newspaper about like ghosts or something or UFOs, and it just kind of like takes the piss or whatever. I thought it was going to be like that, like not very insightful, you know, based on their the tone of their political show that they did. So I didn't really watch it, and then I realised like more recently that they know my friend Luke like pretty well. They must have known him pretty well, because I found these old episodes where they had him on there, and yeah, they seemed like he actually got on well with them. So that made me think like, yeah, maybe there's something to these guys that is like he thought was like valuable, you know. He thought they were worthy of spending time with. So I started looking into their stuff more and watching some of their shows about like crop circles, werewolves, giants, dragons, vampires, whatever, all sorts. And been watching the live streams. They do the live stream on like Thursday. So I'd like to have a word with them, but it's a question of how to get into a deep conversation with them. I don't know. I'm not very good at that sort of thing.
My license. You're very quiet today, Darren.
Indeed. I've been rather preoccupied by the absence of Kenneth Branagh from the popular art scene of late.
Why, you're right, Darren.
I believe the woeful box office returns for Love's Labour's Lost have put for poor Ken's cinematic ambition.
Oh, why are the Hollywood studios run by such Philistines?
I must stop you there momentarily, Kev. There appears to be a young lady at street level trying to inflate her bicycle. Good, give it some of that good energy.
To get out, even if I'm not going that far. I just don't want to push my luck because my muscles are still hurting a little bit, to be honest. So yeah, it's something for me to do, isn't it? Something to listen to. Because there was this other paranormal show that I was watching. It was kind of similar, but they were American guys. And I watched like basically they'd done like 8 seasons, and I've watched like most of their episodes since Christmas. So I've watched like hundreds of episodes, maybe at least 100, I would guess. If they did like, I don't know, 20 or 30 per season that I listened to. And they've done 8 seasons. Yeah, I don't know what's happened to my friend, because like he got 4.2 years in prison with an extended license of 1 year, which I don't know what that means. I thought extended license means that you're on probation for an extra year, because if you get 4 years, that means if you're good, you usually get like released halfway through that, and then you spend 2 years on probation. So he should have been out like a year ago already. But the thing is, like, see, because his crime would be considered like very serious, he may spend more time in prison because of that. And he actually got like a fairly light sentence for what he was doing. Although, I mean, he didn't physically do anything. It was all like talking, you know. He didn't actually physically do a crime. But, and because he wasn't, see, if he was, this is what the expert said, is like, if he was a Muslim, he would have got like double the sentence, you know. Because he's a white person, he kind of got away with it. But yeah, I mean, I only have like 2 really good friends, but he's the only one I've like met in person. You know, in the past like 4 or 5 years, I only have like 2 really good friends, and the other guy, I've never met him because he lives in America. So, yeah, the problem with my friend is he's like, you know, being monitored by like security services, and they don't want him to speak. They probably don't want him to be like hanging out with all his old friends who are like into politics, you know. And see, I didn't know him before prison, you see. So the situation's somewhat different. But still, there's like this problem of communication. But I'm assuming that he's still in prison. Tried sending letters to his house because I thought maybe his mum will read them. Because he used to speak to his mum on the phone all the time, and he would mention me, but I never got a response to any of the letters, so it's possible that his mum doesn't actually live there. Because in some of the newspaper reports, they said that he lives alone, which is possible because he's like upper middle class. He's like quite wealthy. See, he was only like 21 when I met him, you see, or 22.